Hi everyone, thank you for joining today. I am Brittany Tibbin, Account Director here at Spindustry. If you hadn't had a chance to, please go to the link on the bottom left-hand corner and fill out the form for us. We'll be using those results to help us during our webinar today. Today's webinar is SharePoint Roadmap, Tales from the 2019 Conference. Microsoft has two big conferences during the year, the North America SharePoint Conference and Ignite. And they tend to put out a lot of updates right before each conference. So we wanted to put out this webinar to help you navigate through all the updates and the new features that they're releasing. Due to time, we will provide high-level information about each topic, but please email me if you want any more information at all. And we also have previous webinars about most of these topics as well that you can check out. We have a lot to go through today, so we won't be using the question feature like usual, but like I said, if you have any questions, please email me. My contact information will be at the end of the webinar. You will be receiving an email with the recorded webinar and the slide deck later today. And without further ado, I'll let Jared go ahead and share our agenda for today.
Hello, everyone. So we want to talk about several topics today, and like Brittany said, each one of these could probably be its own webinar, but we wanted to kind of just bridge the gap between the conferences, talk about the things that were kind of promised or were highlighted at the last conference, and then what we hope to see at the Ignite conference in November. But our topics today are going to be centered around modern UI, and just some things that have to do with modern UI itself. Modern UI is not a new topic, it's been around for a while. And then PNP, the PNP community. So if you don't know what that is, hang around for that because that's going to be good information for you. It's going to get you a step ahead in your SharePoint experience. And then also we'll talk a little bit about custom development as well and why you might need it or some things that you might want to be able to do and kind of the gap that it fills as well. Then we'll mention OneDrive. We'll talk through the new admin site and just mention a few features there. But there's actually some core things that I want to talk about in there with the creation of site collections and what happens when you create it through the new admin and through the old admin. And then we'll look at migration strategies or the lack of migration strategies really. And then we'll talk about workflow. Brittany's going to do a little segment on Stream, Teams, and Power BI, and then we'll just mention Ignite near the end of this as well. And so again, that's a lot of topics to kind of go through in one webinar. So we'll be kind of hitting the highlights of different things, and I'll just mention the things that I thought were nice. Some of this is not new, but some of it was highlighted at the conference, so I wanted to highlight it here as well. So let's just see where we go and see if we can get through this entire thing. All right. So let's kind of start with modern UI and just kind of looking at the survey you guys filled out for us. It looks like there's some people who are kind of newer to SharePoint, some who are older, have been around in SharePoint for a while. Some of you are administrators, some of you are end users, some of you are in between, you know. So we'll just hit all the topics from the perspective of everyone. So modern UI, you've probably seen modern UI before, although I will say that we do have clients that have not moved to modern UI yet and still are using the classic version and don't even really know what the modern UI is or why they should go. And so I find that very interesting, and so I just want to highlight a few things today. However, I won't go too deep into how do you create a modern UI site and all that stuff, because if you just create one, you can find out all the really cool things about it, like the fact that it's responsive and, you know, like it's out of the box design looks way better than it did in the previous version. So I won't go into too much of that stuff. I do want to mention the fact that something that was mentioned in the keynote speeches that went on in the conference was the creation of a list via Excel, the new way to do that, which I thought is awesome. And we have a really weird scenario where one of our clients has that. We don't know how they have it or why they have it, but they have it. We have 5 environments of our own, and all of them are you know, cutting edge of give us the update right now, and we don't have it in any of our environments, which is amazing. And I don't know how they have it, but they do, and I verified it. So I don't know if it's a mistake or whatever, but it's kind of cool that they do. Anyway, we'll show you as much as we can about that, but I think you'll find that interesting, and I think you'll find that nice for your end users who, especially when you're in transition from non-SharePoint into SharePoint, it helps create lists inside of there that they already have. And then column formatting, which is something I doubt that you know about. So if you're a power user, you may not know, you may have accepted Modern UI, you may be using Modern UI, but you may not know about the fact that you can format columns. And that's not necessarily something that was new again, but it was definitely highlighted at the conference because the same thing I just said is true. We feel like it's been there, but people don't really know about it. And so I'll look at also view formatting. And then I'll discuss the difference between a hub site and a home site in case you've been doing some reading or in case you watched the keynote and you heard this big, gigantic 5-minute lecture on how awesome this new feature was called home site. And then when you figured out what it was, it's like, what? So I just want to kind of clarify a couple of things around that. Hub sites you should be using, I think those are cool, so I'll give a definition of what that is as well. And then I want to discuss branding. That's the first segment of what we're doing, and then we'll move into something slightly different. So let's just take a look. So Modern UI, again, out of the box, very, very nice. Let me just jump out of slides here. Here's an actual site. So Modern UI is very, very nice. It's responsive out of the box, which for those who don't know what that means that it shows very, very well inside of a handheld device. It shows very well in the normal browsers. It actually works really, really well inside of the SharePoint app. And that's really a big difference over, one big difference over the Modern UI and the Classic UI is Classic UI doesn't have a great experience in the SharePoint app at all. If you could even consider it an experience inside of there, it's not very, very nice. But the Modern UI automatically shows in that just so brilliantly. It's just absolutely wonderful. But out of the box, it looks very, very nice and it's responsive. But what we found with our clients is that yes, great, we made the leap to Modern UI because we think it's matured enough for us to kind of get in and start moving forward with it, and that's fantastic. And that's what we started telling our clients at the beginning of the year. We think it's matured to the point where we can actually dive in and start using Modern UI now instead of Classic. But we have found that some clients, when they get into Modern UI, they start going down a road and they're like, well, it can't do this. Oh, what do you mean? I can't show it this way, or I can't do that? Where's the task list at? Minor things like that cause them to say, well, you know what, if I'm going to use this, I might need to just go step back and maybe we'll do it in Classic instead. Or they're using a mixture of Classic and Modern, and that's also fine. Whatever you have to do to make it work, that's great. So I will be talking a little bit about what happens when you create a site a certain way, and I think that's important that you understand that because certain features are enabled and certain features are not. So I'll get there as well. But we've gotten to the point where our clients are saying, well, I'm now dabbled into the Modern UI, but there's just a few things in here that I'd like to be able to do that I can't actually do. And so how do I get around that? Part of that being the search that Microsoft has placed at the top of the pages here, and things like that. So, and you'll see that I have our search hidden up here, but I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. And so I wanted to be able to just bring forth some things that might help you out as you're going through this particular journey. So let's start out with just some things that are really cool inside of Modern UI that you can do today. And let me just switch over to a different site. I'll switch over to this HR site. And just to let you know, just a couple of things that are out of the box that you can do that have been enhanced inside of the branding piece of this and just the look and feel piece of this. I'm just going to edit this page. And if you haven't seen Modern before, first of all, you notice that there are two types of sites that you can create if you're going down the Modern road. That is the communication site and that is the team site. Those are the two options that you have. However, when I get over into the admin site, I want you to see that they have improved that and they have additional options. But those options are just leading you back to the classic way of doing things, which is fine. I have no problem with that. Okay, but I wanted to mention that if you haven't seen it, as you go in to edit a specific page, you do have some new options now. There is a full width option, which you don't see in this because I'm inside of a team site and not a communication site. But you also have this vertical section, which I think is also very nice. Because if you're like me, I mean, there's a lot of white space on this page, and I'd like to kind of break that up by coloring sections and such. So for example, I could take this section that I'm in and I could say that, oh, it needs a red background. I could do that. But what I found from that is that Microsoft doesn't trim or release the backgrounds, if you will, for all the different widgets that they have. So some, like this one, has this extra white space on the side. I don't know if I want that there. This one right here lets it go and copies the actual background that I put in there. So I like the way it switched up. So there's some pieces that I like and then some pieces that I don't necessarily like. So if I like the way the people profiles actually show up when I do that. So I like to commonly come in and do something like that. I think it offsets the page, gets rid of some of that white space. But this new feature here, oops, didn't want to do that, this guy. When I go to add a new section and add a vertical section, I think this is pretty cool because I can take this whole side now and it goes the width, the entire height of the page, and I can click here and make that whole segment over there a specific color. And I think that balances out the page as well and gets rid of some of the white space for me. And I'm happy about that. I think that's pretty neat. Let's put a weather on there. Des Moines. There we go. And so I can see background colors, all that kind of good stuff. So I like that new feature. That's kind of nice. The other improvements are coming through actual web parts. So you may be someone who decided, well, you know, we're not going to go down the modern UI path because I haven't seen some things that I think should really be there yet. And you know, we were on that same train, so I don't fault you for that. But for example, you might have come and looked at the image viewer, right? Which can look like the image gallery, which can look like blocks, can look like you know, a grid, or it can look like a carousel now, right? Well, it could always look like a carousel. But when you first looked at it, like say a year ago, even at the beginning of the year possibly, it did not have the ability to cycle through these, just to scroll through these. And so now you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, look, a new option is here. And that's what's happening with modern UI. So as they put these controls out, they didn't just give up on them. They're still working on them. So they're trying to listen to user voice to kind of see which direction do we want to go, although they don't always listen to me. Okay, and but they are trying to, you know, figure out what's the functionality that's most needed. And they start from a security perspective, which is if there's a security risk, they're going to go and fix it right away. And then other things will fall in line, and then there's the things that they want to do themselves, which probably take more precedence than what Jared wants to do. So I came back months later and I was like, oh look, you know, there's a button here for automatically cycling through these images, which I thought was great, and then I can control the speed. Would I like to see more? Yes. Is this good enough for me now? Yeah, it's okay. Okay. So I'm happy. So they're moving in the right direction, and things are looking good there. Okay, so here's another feature, and you can see that they're doing further integration with Stream and things like that. So I have, from my Stream videos, I just embedded an entire catalog of a channel of videos on here, so you can do really nice things like that. So let me take you to another page. I'm going to go back to the home page of this, and you've probably noticed for a long time that there's been this new, oops, oh, this is the department. I don't think it's the zone, sorry. So you've noticed that there's always been this new button here, right? And inside that new button, at some point in time in the last year, it showed up that we could actually add lists and libraries and stuff like that from here. I don't know why. I don't know why that needs to be here, but it is. Maybe they thought it'd be convenient. I'm okay with it. So when you click list, basically the experience you get is it just comes over here and says, okay, put in the new name, which was also the experience that you received when you went to site contents to do the same thing. And so, you know, no one, if you didn't know, if you adopted doing it from the top level or from the home page, then you probably didn't know about this new feature that they showed us at the last conference, which is when you come in here and create list, you now get a whole new dialogue for this, okay? And I expect this dialogue to grow, okay? And I'm saying that because there's a feature that was demonstrated to us that is missing from here, and I expect it to grow and then continue to grow with other things that you could do as well. So here I have creating a new list, just put in a name for it, you know, test, okay? And then boom, you can click create if you want it down here at the bottom. Or you can click from an existing list. Now, many of you are going, oh, that's awesome. And I too said, oh, that's awesome. But I then stepped back for a minute and thought about governance and things like that. So let me just show you this real quick, and then I'll talk about that. So notice that it showed me all the different sites that I'm a member of that I have access to. It doesn't show me anything that I don't have access to. I'm a site collection administrator on all these, so I can see them. And basically, you just go to wherever you want. If you like that list, check it, click create, and it creates the list for you. So that's pretty cool. That probably solves some problems for a lot of you, or at least you think so. But the question you have to ask yourself is have I adopted governance? And have I said in my governance that we'll always use content types, and those content types will be stored in the content type hub, and so on. So you have to come and play with this for a few minutes and see if this meets the needs of your governance as well. Because although it does pull over everything, is it, you know, go play with it for yourself, because I don't want you to take what we say. Is it bringing over the content types, and are those content types still wired to the content type hub? So that if I make a change to the content types in the content type hub, does it push it down to these lists? I want you to go play with that for yourself to figure that out, okay? The other thing is, if you pick a list that has lookups and other things inside of it, it's going to give you a warning that says, hey, we'll create the list for you, but you probably should create those other lists also, because it's not going to be wired to anything. So keep that in mind. Also, I want you to experiment with columns that are people picker columns that you have kind of preset for different things. Check those and see how they're reacting as well. So I gave you a few hints there to take a look at, but do that yourself. I want to mention this. So I keep saying that this is going to grow. These two items are here now. There's going to be a third one. Actually, the third one's going to be right in the middle of here. And what that is the ability for you to create Excel lists. So I'm just going to pop up a slide because obviously I don't have that feature in my environment. And I apologize for this, for the graininess of this slide. It is what it is. You guys just accept it. Okay, so what you'll be able to do is click from Excel, choose your list, then go in and pick the table out of that list that you want to format. And that's similar to the experience you had when you went to the classic version and said import an Excel list. What that export list would do was go out, and you would have to do it in Internet Explorer if you were in the old version, and you'd have to have the ActiveX control in there and all that kind of stuff because it wouldn't work from another browser. And so you had to do all those little hoops. But then you could point to the actual template or table that you're looking for, and it would import that information. You basically, though, would have to format your table in Excel to make sure that it was going to come out the right way inside of SharePoint. Here, what you can do is actually switch the column names. You can edit all of this to make it what you want it to be, is what I'm trying to say. In addition to being able to change the header names, being able to change the column types if you want to, and say, don't import that column, which is also important. Maybe I don't want all of it. And then, you know, Excel might have deemed something to be a number, but you might say, no, it's not really a number. It's actually just an ID of something, which means it might be text. And so you might want to be able to go in and change that and make those changes. So I think this is really innovative, and I think it's cool, and I think people will like this, especially if you're in that transition state where you're going from nothing into SharePoint and you have a lot of Excel documents that really could just be SharePoint lists. So I think those are good things. Okay, so.
From the forums, I've actually noticed that we only have a couple developers in here, and the rest are all power users, end users, and SharePoint admins. And it's neat because you haven't said anything yet that is needed any sort of coding or anything. And that's one of the great things about Modern, is that really anybody can be in here and do most of the things. Yeah,
that is awesome. And thank you for saying that, because now you need to be a developer for everything else I showed you.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get that in here.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You don't have to be a developer for everything else that I'm showing you. So I do want to go take a look at column formatting and view formatting. And this is kind of a half and half thing. You could be a power user and get this done, or you might need to just call in a developer who's familiar with some of the technology to get it done. So I'm just going to go in and take a look at that real quick. So here I have a starter document, or a starter list that I want to just show. Okay, and this is just basically, oddly enough, I took an Excel document. I created a list here. I took an Excel document and I copied all the Excel from it and went to the quick edit and dumped it all in here, and it did it perfectly. So I thought that was awesome. Anyway, with my columns here, you already know that you can go and make these columns larger. You can add new columns. You can go in and you can sort it, filter it by, do the grouping from here. So you already know all of that. I know that you know that. But did you know that you could come in and actually format these? This is not a new feature. It's just that it really wasn't highlighted that much. I mean, I started doing this back in January, so it's been out at least since then. And so, I mean, these are really cool things. So what we see under here is several things, but the one I want to point you to is the format this column, which I think is really kind of cool. So I can click on it, and if it's a column that SharePoint understands, then and it decides, hey, I might be able to do something with that, then it'll give you some options on what you could do with it. So for example, if it's a Boolean column or a yes/no column, it knows what it can do with that, and it'll give you an option over here for how to format that. Okay, and so this one gave me like data bars, and so I'll just click on that, and I'll hit save, and then we'll all wait for a minute. And you'll see that it formed these data bars here, and as they grow, it gets larger and larger and larger and larger. This data is not really great for that, but you can see that it did format it and do something with it, which is totally nice, right? The other thing you can do, though, is if you're saying I need something more advanced than that, that's also awesome. you could actually just click advanced mode, and then it'll show you, hey, this is what I did so far. You can go in and modify that. Or if it's a column that doesn't understand, that it doesn't really understand, like it shouldn't really understand this one. So I'll go here and click on format this. It'll just give you that box from the start. And what it's saying is that you can put in JSON. And I know that everyone in the world knows what JSON is. No, not really. So JSON is JavaScript object notation, which doesn't really matter for what you're doing. But it is a way to give data to someone so that it has meaning when you give it to them, right? So we need to apply some meaning into SharePoint so it understands what to do with these. Fortunately, inside of our presentation, the slide deck, I have links that'll take you to the place where you can get some already done formulas, some formatting. So let me take you to a finished page and kind of show you what I did for some column formatting. Okay, so it's the same set of data. I did rearrange it a little bit, and I narrowed it down a little bit so it loaded a little bit faster. But look what I did here. So first column, same. Second column, I made the product into a link. So now what it does is it turned it into something that will now go to Google and actually do a search for it, which is really nice. So all these are now hyperlinks. How did I do that? I just added in some JSON, and I didn't add that much JSON inside of here. And I feel like some power users who are really good with formulas like in Excel and stuff, I feel like you would be able to grasp this and understand it and actually know where to make changes at. So for example, all this is really doing is creating an element. That's an A tag. So if you know a little bit of HTML, you know that's an anchor tag. Okay, and then it's taking the text for that and bringing it in from the current field. So whatever the text was already, it's just going to put it. It's going to utilize that. And then down here, it's setting up a attribute to say underscore blank, which means open up in a new browser. And then it's creating the href for that, which is the link that it actually goes to. And I just typed in http://google.com/ and then I used the information from the current field here so that it created my entire URL. That's not that hard. And I feel like people could catch on to what they're doing if they looked at some of the examples that are out there. The cool thing about this is it has a preview, so you can click on preview without actually having to save it first, and it'll show you that it's working or not working. And if it's not working, it gives you a big gigantic error inside that cell. And so this is the same thing. I use the spark lines for this. Back over here, I wanted to know whether if my stock was below 700 and something, like 750 or something like that, I have it formatted to have color behind it and give me this little icon. I found this code and just manipulated it. Okay, so I didn't do anything special. The hardest thing about this is basically the if statement that's in it that says, hey, if it's an error, if it's less than 720, do this. And then if you want to compound that if statement and say additional ones, it's a little bit harder. But I mean, still, all of it's really kind of simple, right? And then the one that I really like is I turned this modified by column into a click it and email the person. You know, so I thought that was kind of cool as well. And the way I did that was, again, I found some code online. I actually tweaked this one quite a bit, but I found some code online and formatted it, and boom, there it is. Just pasted it right in here, and it's good to go. So I did put links for those inside of the slide deck so that you guys would have them and be able to take them and use them. All right. So let me talk a little about hub sites while I'm actually here. So for hub sites, let me explain what a hub site really does, because I've run into many clients that didn't understand really what a hub site was. They were overthinking it, I think. A hub site, if you could think of it as a way to group multiple site collections together. So a way to group multiple site collections together. And what does that mean, group them together? The site collections are still separate. Each one is its own independent site collection, but it's now listening to the hub. So I choose one of those site collections to be the hub. It's listening to the hub and being able to participate in the navigation that I have for the hub site. So the hub site has this navigation here that's showing up on every single site collection that is a part of the hub. In addition to that, it's also, all those sites are listening to the theme as well. So I have 4 site collections that are sitting here, right? And when I go to the next one, you're going to see the same thing. It has the same navigation up here. Okay, if I go to the HR, it has the same navigation, look and feel as well on here. So they're all enjoying those things. And so that's kind of cool. And that just gives you the ability to push down a new theme to all of them and to make changes. Like I want to change the header or something like that. It'll push it all the way down and kind of keep them looking the same. In addition to that, it enhances the search as well. So when you go to do a search, in fact, I have to go to a different site to show you because I removed the search from this site, and I'll talk about why in a little while. So you'll see that this one says search this site. So I'm gonna just go look for something like policy. Okay, and you'll see that it's searching just the project center that I have, which is the site that I'm on, but then I could move my search up to the level of searching the hub as well. And that's now searching over all of the sites that are inside this hub. And then I can, of course, go all the way back up to the organization level. And so that's another thing that it does. It also allows you to, the news feature allows you to say, hey, I want news from all over the hub to be here as well. So if I go edit this news feature, I am on the home, I'm on the project page. There you go. But you'll see here the news feature has, hey, I want hub news. And I can draw news from all the different places in the hub. So that's what the hub site really does. The hub site's not really a new type of site that you go out and create. The hub site is basically wrapping multiple site collections together so it can they can share in what they're doing. So that's really kind of cool, and I kind of like that. So then, great, Jared, that's fantastic. Now I know what a hub site is, or maybe you already knew what a hub site is, and that's awesome, fantastic. Okay, but what is this thing that they were talking about in the keynote speech for 5 or 6 minutes on how awesome this new feature was called home site? And I don't know if it was worth the 5 or 6 minutes. So basically, all we're saying is that, hey, because we're using hub sites a lot, and because we're using the modern UI, as an administrator, when I go in and create my primary intranet site, usually I would have used the default URL for that. And so the base URL for my SharePoint would have been just our intranet site. But since the hub sites, and since we're embracing like communication sites and such, when we go to create those, they don't have the base URL. There's /sites/something, right? /sites/intranet. And so how do I then make sure that everyone can know and get to that home page, that main portal that we want them to get to? And so basically, if I want this icon here, when someone clicks on it, to go to my new home site, my main intranet portal, I can do that by going into the organizational profiles, editing the properties here, and going through and setting up the logo that I want, and setting up the URL, make the logo clickable. Well, they're going to do that same thing with like the word SharePoint. When you go to click on that, it's going to go to a home site as well. So the other thing that is really cool that's going to be there is this. So because obviously this is not in our environment, it's not out yet, but in the SharePoint app, it's always been a struggle for me when I show people the SharePoint app, that it doesn't have a way to get to the main site that I want them to get to. How do I get to the employee portal? How do I get to our main intranet portal? And so you have to basically look at your frequented sites, or scroll down and see the more sites or something like that, or search for it and then find that site. Well, I mean, that's, it is what it is. However, what they're doing now is, as you set up the home site, it's going to also enable this button here inside of the SharePoint app, and they can click on that to get to your home site. So those are some cool things that I think are there. Okay, I didn't take 5 or 6 minutes to speak about that. I don't think they should have took 5 or 6 minutes to speak about it, but it is what it is. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about branding. So I showed you right off the bat how I could create this new sidebar, and I think that's really cool, and how you could create that vertical section. And then if you're on a communication site, you also see the full width section that you can add in there. Not all web parts can fit into the full width section. So if a developer creates a full width web part, or one that can do that, then it will also be able to go in that zone, and that's pretty cool. Right now it's like images can go in there, and the hero can go in there, and a couple other things, but that's it. So that's all cool. But the problem that we have is that as people are doing branding, we find that they're running into, it's just, there's not enough there. They want more, right? Would you find that to be true, Brittany?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have the outside world has also seen that issue, and they're pushing forward and putting out functionality that maybe Microsoft hasn't placed out there yet. Okay, so some of that comes through the PMP community. Some of that comes through your developers internally doing custom development. Okay, and so how do you get around these issues when what they provided is not enough, or when you just feel like, hey, I'd really like to have some more inside of here? So I don't know if you've noticed it yet, but what you're seeing in here, and this is so funny. Yesterday I added this logo here, and today it finally showed up. And I was waiting for it. That's why I actually had a slide for that instead. I could have just shown it to you from here. So kind of neat. All right, so I have a couple of demos set up. You may have noticed on my site that it looks a little bit different than normal sites, right? And so I have this extra little piece here with this gradient. And I know you were looking at thinking, Jared, that is the most beautiful gradient I've ever seen. And I wish I could have that on my site as well. How did you do that, Jared? And Jared, I've always wanted to have the time, the date over here, because my people constantly forget what day it is, right? And so you needed to be able to add some additional features to your SharePoint. Well, as a developer, I was able to go in, do a little bit of custom development, and add this header inside of here. Now, I'm not going to tell you, hey, this is something an end user or a power user can do. No, you've got to call a developer for this, because they need to understand the SharePoint framework and to be able to work with the system. They need to understand tools like Visual Studio Code and what some of the different methodologies for coding inside of these environments are. The cool thing about all of that, and don't worry, I'm not going to talk a lot about development, but the cool thing about that is you can be assured now that the technology that the developers are using to create things for the new modern SharePoint is the same technology that Microsoft is using to create new technology for their environment. What that means to us is that we're not going to be left out in the cold one day where Microsoft's going to say, oh, you know what, we're going to discontinue that, like they did with custom web parts and such. Or, hey, you're not going to be able to use those custom web parts inside of SharePoint. They won't do that to us anymore, because the code that we're writing is the same type of code that they would write, and there's no harm to the system or anything like that. So without going more detailed into it, I'll just say take that as an assurance, and that's good. Because there's a lot of you who are migrating now from SharePoint 2010 or SharePoint 2013, and you've delayed your migration to the cloud because you have custom web parts that are in your environment that are not going to run inside the cloud. So you're holding on to your old environment, and so you can figure out a plan for how to get that migration done. And that's the truth of our situation today. That's what's going on inside these new environments. But the SharePoint framework will allow us to go in and code and do these things. So I added a header extension to this top portion. And because I was doing that, I took it upon myself to also override some style inside of here. So let me show you, before I do my unveiling of how awesome this is, let me take you to a different site. And so, Brittany, would you say that our clients like the modern UI?
They definitely like it at the beginning. They find it, I guess, pretty at first. Everyone's kind of in shock. It looks so different from Classic. But once they actually start to use it and get past the home page and actually start using the functional features, they start finding things that aren't ideal.
Yeah, so not broken.
No,
but just, I wish I could.
Yes.
I wish I could. We hear that a lot. Can it do this? And so we went out to say, yes, it can do this. So one thing that kind of bugs people is like I said earlier, all the white space that's on the page, and some places where there's a lot of white space, and then some places where there's not. Like between these two cells here, right? There's not a lot of white space going on. So when I'm looking at this, because all this white space is here, my eyes are associating this see all with this guy over here. And I just want a little bit of separation. Could I get a box around it? Something like that, Could we make the header so it has a background on it or something like that? Could I get something, anything?
Or remove see all together.
Or could I remove see all? Thank you. Could I remove see all altogether? Because I don't want them actually to go see more, right? Could we do all that for someone? Okay, so if you know a developer who's kind and loving and likes to do SharePoint work on the weekends, and at nights, then you could have someone actually go and create this for you, right? This is not hard code that I did. So basically, like I said, since I was adding in this header section anyway, to be clear, I didn't have to actually show anything up here. I could have just added in that header extension and it could have been invisible. But since I did that anyway, I took the opportunity to override some of the style that was on the page already. So what I said is, hey, if someone adds a list or a library to here as a view, I want them to be able to have the colors that I want it to have. So now I have it so that it looks like this. And this is much more readable than what you saw before. I've got my boxes around it. That's kind of cool. It separates them out. So now when I'm scrolling, you know, I see what I'm scrolling through and so forth. I've got this beautiful, there's my little gradient again. I'm so proud of my gradients, awesome. My see all is still on here because I wanted it on there, but I changed the colors to those to match what I wanted them to match. And so that's really cool. I mean, I think that's really nice stuff to be able to do. And I was able to go through and you know, it's a governed style, so it's not something that an end user would come and change. I could enable properties for them to go and make some changes if I needed to, but I think this is just something that you should think about. So what am I trying to say? What's my message here? My message is, just because Microsoft didn't provide it out of the box doesn't mean that it can't still be done in a safe and secure way, okay, without too much extra work inside of there. So if there's something you're striving for, and if this helps with end user acceptance, you need to do that. It doesn't matter what the cost is. End user acceptance is extremely important, and if you can get your users to use the system, that's what we're looking for. So I think that was really neat. That's my little version of some custom design. But what else could I do? So Jared, I'm not a real true developer. I dabbled, right? And I know a little bit about it. You know, back in the day, I wrote some VB or something like that. You know, maybe I did a little bit of JavaScript because I did some HTML and JavaScript. So what can I do, Jared? Okay, so let me move in to talk about search and search refinement. And I'm going to show you what a couple of people in the PMP community did and how they saved Jared's life, okay? Because I am a search freak, right? And I was extremely proud of going around and telling people how awesome Microsoft's SharePoint search is. And in Classic, we go and create some really, really advanced systems based off of search, just revealing information to someone that they're allowed to see because search is security trimmed, and being able to show it as targeted searches, show a diagram or just a piece of information that goes and gets, show a web part on a page that goes and gets information from multiple sites, brings it back over and displays it in the way that I want to display it, not the way Microsoft shows it. I wanted all that functionality, but most of all, I wanted to be able to do refinement. So as I listened inside of the keynote speech, as I was sitting there, the only thing I wanted to hear them say at the conference was the words refiners. And they didn't let me down. They talked in the middle. They waited till about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through their speech before they actually said the word refiner. And then he said this: "We know you want refiners." I'm gonna summarize. "We know you want refiners, Jared," because they were speaking directly to me. "We know you want refiners, Jared. So we are going to give you refiners, but they're not ready yet. We hope to have them by Ignite." And so Microsoft is trying to work on their search and improve it. So what do you mean they have to work on their search, Jared? Let me take you through the experience currently, and then I'm going to show you how we can resolve that today without having to wait for Microsoft to fix their stuff, okay? So let me go out here first to a different site. I'll go over here to my project site, which I did not hide the search on there. Okay, and I know you might be asking how I hid the search. I hid the search in my code, okay, just so you know. All right, so here's what someone goes through today in the modern UI search. If you don't have this change yet, so if your search bar is still here in the header, and when you go to a list, you have a search over here on the left-hand side, those will go away and those will be moved up to the top, okay? So what's happening now, and I've seen my own people who are educated in how to use SharePoint and how to search, I've seen them trip up on this. They go here to search, they click in here, and immediately you are given some results. I didn't ask for anything yet, but you were given some results. So the problem here is that now I have the squirrel effect. You know, I've seen something that's interesting to me and I'm like, oh, yeah, let me go look at that. And I completely forgot what I was going to look for. Or I got news and I completely forgot what I was going to look for. And so I get distracted, okay? So if I can get past that, which is good, then I go in and I type in something like policy. So you saw me type that in before. And it's starting to give me results right there, right? And yes, you may say that's good, but I've actually got more things that say policy inside of them or in the titles or in the document or content types. I've got more than what I'm seeing here. So again, I'm being distracted. And what I saw one of our users do the first time she went to use this, and when I say she, I don't mean Brittany, okay? When the first time she went to use this, she saw it, she looked and deemed that there were no more results here, that it wasn't, she didn't find it, is what she was thinking. And so instead, a user needs to either hit enter or hit this little item over here, or click on show more results. And when they do that, they'll be directed over to a new page. So I found that to be a little distracting for everyone. So this one is only searching this level of the site. So it found all these documents. Some of the documents have the name, have the word policy inside of them. And then some of them actually have a content type for this. So it's not, I want more results than this. So I'm gonna go back up to the hub level, okay? And then the hub gives me probably about 35 results or something like that. I do hate the fact that it's not telling me exactly how many results it has out there, because I wanna know whether I should go to page 2 or not, right? Or page 3 or page 4 or page 5. And so that's a problem. The other problem is the filter you're seeing, okay, which actually can be done from here as well, okay? The filter you're seeing, I'm only able to filter on this. That's it, last modified. Who thought that was good, right? What I want to be able to do is break this down by the type of documents that they are, by the whether they're what their content type is, by some managed metadata. And the problem that we have right now is that even as a developer, I cannot go into the search result page and modify it to add refiners. And that is what Jared's waiting for and looking for very much. So is the search okay? Does the search work? Yes, it works, and it does its job. You know, it brings back information and stuff. So I think we're all okay with the fact that it's doing something. You know, it even shows me little previews of documents and such. Okay, which that's cool, right? So I'm happy with some of the things that it's doing. However, I'm missing my refiners, and I need that because we are a company, and the majority of the companies that we go through, and if you have governance, you know how important that search is. You do not want a system where you do a search and it gives you back a whole bunch of information, but your information is not there on top, or you can't narrow down your information. So what did I do? I looked toward the wonderful, wonderful people at the PMP, in the PMP community, patterns and practice community, and found out that there is, and I saw this a while ago, but it was also presented at the conference in a couple of different sessions, which is kind of cool. And I was happy to see that people were grasping it, okay? But what I'm able to do here is say, let me get out of this search, okay? And let me go to a search page that I've created, okay? That is a targeted search specifically for policies. So I created just a page where people could go in and look for policies. Awesome, right? So it allows them to go in and enter any keyword search. So they'll type in policy, just like I did before. And you'll see I'll get about the same number of results. I happen to know how many there are, but if I go on the bottom, let's see, oh, sorry, right up here at the top, it tells me that there's 38 results for policy. What that means is it found some folders named policy, it found some documents named policy, it found some content types that were the policy content type, and it found a page that had the word policy somewhere in it, right? So those documents might have the word policy inside of it, but not even be named policy or not even be a policy, right? And so what I'm looking for is what are the actual policies for our organization? And so because I have this refinement on the side, awesome, I should be able to click here on policy and I get down to the 9 actual policies that we have. That enough is cool, right? But I can also go in and format what the results look like for this, right? And so what I've done is say, hey, if the policy is a high level policy, or you know, has a policy level of high, then I went and added some extra text to it on every single one of those. So you can see that I have 2 of those. I'll just narrow them down. Okay, and there are those 2 sitting there, and they have the extra text on there. That is awesome, right? So I don't have a lot of time to actually tell you everything about it, but I'm just going to click on edit real quick and show you all the pieces of the puzzle. So what I did is I went to PMP, I downloaded the code. This is why you might need a developer. I downloaded the code for the PMP Modern UI search. And I went through and I tweaked whatever I thought I needed to tweak, and they give you instructions on things you might want to tweak as well. So I did the tweaking, and then I saved that and I exported it and compiled it. And then I brought that over into our environment. And it is now available to across my entire Office 365 environment, all sites. So then I added that app in, and what it did was give me 5 pieces of the puzzle. It gave me the search box, the results box, this pager, and then also the refiner. The 5th part is those little tabs that Microsoft had going across the top of those. We have those as well. So if you want, you can choose to use those if you want to. I don't like them, so I don't use them. So I'm able to do all of this, and we've done some pretty extraordinary things with this so far, and we like it. We like it a lot. But I can also go in, just for those who care, and just show you real quick. I can go in, and I won't show you all the cool things that I can do because Brittany's saying you don't have time for that. You don't have time for that. But I can go in and say, hey, let me reformat the way the results come out. All I have to really know here is HTML and something called handlebars. We'll do another demo, not a demo, but another webinar on SPFX, and I'll show you what handlebars is and some of the extra things in there. But I can also say for each type of result that comes back, show a different template. So for my policy levels, if the policy level is high, I went in and made it have these extra words inside of there and made it red. That is super cool. This is what we want to be able to do inside of our search. This is where the modern UI search needs to be, and that's where we are today if you use the PMP community to help you out with that.
All right. So switching gears a little bit, nothing more about coding. Microsoft has really been pushing OneDrive, and this is actually something I'm not as big of a fan with. And don't get me wrong, OneDrive is a great product, but when your process is to save documents in certain locations other than OneDrive, it can kind of get in the way. And this is a new thing they're pushing out. So it's just important to know where your people in your organization is going to see this and have a plan in place on where you do want them saving their documents. And you can see on the screen here, the pop-up that comes up automatically now. It's in our environment. You guys will probably be getting it soon. It'll push you right to saving into OneDrive.
And of course, they can change it, but Microsoft, I don't know, they're on this mission to make everybody go to OneDrive. And
Yeah.
I don't really understand that mission, because if we talk to an organization and we go through governance, OneDrive is not where they want their people to store this information. Most of them would like to have, you get a terabyte of space in OneDrive. I like to have half of that back and applied to my SharePoint space instead, versus having all that in OneDrive. So I don't understand where the message is getting lost when it goes forward to Microsoft, but they obviously have a plan. I don't know what the plan is, and they're not going to tell me what that is, but I'll figure it out one day. But they obviously have a plan, so we're going to stick around and see what they're saying. And then, you also look here at the new interface for OneDrive, and on your left-hand side, you see all, like we're saying, you see all these libraries, and these are libraries that I'm allowed, that I already am a member of, and so that's nice to have it all in one place and then be able to go and access it from there and just stay inside of OneDrive. That's kind of cool. But again, we have so many ways to do that. So I have Teams to aggregate data together. I have OneDrive. I've got SharePoint and SharePoint apps. Just have too many ways to kind of work with it, and you need to figure out for your organization what's the best way to go. All right.
So most of you said in the form at the beginning that you were SharePoint admins. So specifically for you guys, and the rest of you, hang on there, because I have something really cool to show you right after this. But for you admins, you've probably noticed some changes recently, so we really quickly just want to show you a few of those.
So a lot of you are admins, but some of you are admins for the SharePoint, and some of you are Office 365 admins, and then some of you are just site admins is what you're telling us. And so, and then some of you are power users. So all of you kind of need to hear some of the things I'm going to say inside of here, because part of this is really important. So let's look at the Admin Center. There's a couple of features in there that I kind of like that I'll just briefly show you. Let's see if I can get back to the Admin Center. There you go. So first of all, inside of the normal Admin Center, non-SharePoint stuff, you will see that there's this Microsoft search piece here, which is what Microsoft is pushing for how to do searches now. And without going through that whole thing, what that is if you are in Bing and you do a search for policy, not only will it find information that Bing would normally find, but you'll also see show me results for Spin23 because I've logged in with my Spin23 account. And then I see over here there's 8 sites and a bunch of files that it thought was worth me looking at. So most of you stopped listening as soon as I said that you had to go to Bing to do that. So I'm just going to go back over here, and then we'll go down. And earlier I mentioned the fact that if you wanted to make those changes to how this link up here works, you could do that from settings and from the organizational profile. Also, if you have not received yet the top option up here, the search being sent to the top, that is also something that you can do by moving up the release track that you're on. So we always want to have targeted people on the very newest release. You might not want to have your whole organization because you want to kind of see changes before they happen so you can correct those changes or let everybody know. So that's all done from here as well. So the new admin is nothing hard to organize. It does give you a little bit more flexibility on where adding new cards and designing it the way that you want to design it and whether you want to be in dark mode or not. But I'm going to go down and talk about the SharePoint piece. So down here in SharePoint, Okay, so this is still the classic center, right? And right now I have to go and click on open it now and to get into the new SharePoint Admin Center. It's only going to allow me to do this for so many times. I think they have a counter on it or something like that. You come back here like 5 or 6 times and all of a sudden it forces you to the new environment instead, which I'm okay with because they've made the new center good enough for me to work in. So I'm happy with that. And they'll continue to improve it. So note, I can do a lot of things over here and I'm going to come back to this in just a second. But I'm going to click here on jumping into the new. And I will say this, so the center, I don't have a problem with it at all. I mean, I can get my messages from here for, the health of SharePoint and also messages that pertain to SharePoint. So it's kind of filtered out. I'm happy about that. And then just some activity, which I look at sometimes, but not every day. However, I will say this, if you are going to create sites, you can create sites here from the active sites. You can create 2 types of sites. Either you're creating communication sites or team sites. How fast it generates a site when you do it this way is amazing. So by the time you finish clicking OK and moving off of this page, the site's being created, is ready for you to use. That's phenomenal, and that's one reason that it's worth using this new site. However, I just want to mention a few things before we go there. Let me go through a few other topics first. So here, if I need to get back to my classic features, like once they permanently put you here where they get rid of the other page for you, to get back to your classic features will be right here. And when you do that, you'll note that they're putting the 4 prominent things they think you might want. Like you still need to be able to affect search. You still need to be able to play with the user profiles in the term store and then add apps. So they put those up there. Well, Jared, how do I get back to the old one to create a different type of site? Well, good question. They hid those on here because they know you don't care about some of these things like BCS and InfoPath and stuff like that. However, I tell you to remember that classic site collection page exists because I'm saying you're going to want to use that still. I know I'm not the trendy guy who's like saying don't do it, Jared, but I'm saying you need to go classic every once in a while, and I'd like to explain why. Okay, so I have created 2 sites. Before I go there, let me just mention a few other things that I thought was cool. For those who don't know, to create a hub site, you select a site and you could go here to register as a hub site. To associate a hub site, you can select one or more of these items and associate a hub site. But you can now do bulk editing too, which seems like a very little thing, but it's kind of cool. So you can bulk edit and you could do hub association all at one time, which is also kind of neat. So those are all cool things. Setting security and the sharing level or the security level is also something you can do as your bulk editing. So those are all nice. Now, having said all that, I created 2 sites. Okay, I created one in the classic, going through the classic interface, and one through here. Obviously, the one through here was like lightning fast as far as being created. The other one, it's kind of like they turned down the dial and said, hey, we're going to make this as slow as possible. And that's what they did. So I have those 2 sites created. And I just want to show you some differences because I need you to go back to your environment and weigh this out on how you intend to do this for the future. Okay, so here's the one that I created the new way. So it says new team site. This is what it looks like. I created an old team site, which came out classic first. And then I just went through and made a modern page for it. And now it's a modern site. Everything else in it is modern, right? So do you notice any differences in it? One, okay, you'll see this private group here because when I create them through the new center, they are attached to a Office 365 group. If I go to the old way, I can avoid that step and not have to tie these to an Office 365 group. So here's another thing. When you get to site settings for these, this is the new one. Notice I'm missing a lot of things like permissions and all that kind of stuff. I need you to go in and make sure that all the features that you want on one of these sites is there before you get too far, because we've run down this road before where we got down and we started working on some of the multiple sites and we couldn't do certain things because there were features that were not enabled that we could not even enable in PowerShell. Be careful. But if you start with the old classic one, you get everything the classic had before. You can still do all the things you had before, but you can make it look modern and make it stay looking modern. Okay, so that's what I had to say about that because I'm running out of time, but keep that in mind. All right, so
one of the main things I'm always looking out for more information is migrations or file transfers. This is one of the main things people reach out for, and in the form at the beginning, I actually noticed that the 2 most popular topics of what SharePoint you're currently in is 2013 or online.
Nice.
So all those in 2013, sure, the company's starting to talk about migration because pretty soon 2013 will be deprecated. So at the conference, we didn't see a whole lot of information about it that wasn't just from a third-party vendor. But if this is a topic of interest for you, I did want to share a resource coming up. So our webinar next month is actually on this topic. It's called Clean Up Your SharePoint Mess Using Fusion. It'll be November 14th, and we actually have a guest speaker, Steen Jacobson from No Code Solution, that will talk to us about a product called Fusion that we use for all of our clients. And at its core, it provides a really slick way to do data transfers, but it also automates business processes and brings life to your data. So that'll be released on our website soon, so you can register, and that'll be a good one for you guys to see.
So workflow is also another topic that was pretty popular. And when I say it was pretty popular, I simply mean the Microsoft Flow portion of that was pretty popular. No one was talking about SharePoint Designer 2010 or 2013, and there were absolutely no improvements for SharePoint Designer 2010 and 2013 workflow, and don't expect any to be happening in the future. They're not investing any time there. If you missed the Microsoft Flow conference, which was on September 10th, the entire thing's on YouTube, all 9 hours of it. So they had, I think, 18 speakers, and they just pieced it all into one big gigantic video. There's a lot of good information on there. Go check that out and have fun with that. We do a lot of super interesting things with Microsoft Flow, and we are stretching the boundaries every day. Our name is Spindustry, but it should be We Break Stuff. And so we are pushing it to its limits and have done some really fascinating things, and it's holding up really well. So we're very happy with that. So we don't have time for a demo for that, but go check out that video. There's 9 hours of demos, basically.
So this next slide are 3 of my favorite Microsoft products. We have Microsoft Streams, Teams, and Power BI. I won't reach out for a demo today, but I do want you to know that our previous webinars, we've looked at all of these, and I can talk about Stream and Teams for days. So if you want to see anything or hear more, please let me know. In Microsoft Stream, I just wanted to point out that they've added some really neat features. You can actually, and Jared, thank you for sharing, there's a way that you can actually transcribe the videos, which is awesome. It does it automatically for you. And it works really well with Microsoft Forms, which is that form you filled out at the beginning. You can turn those into quizzes. So during the video, it'll actually pause, make the person fill out a quiz, record the results, and you can continue in the video.
Yeah, and I wish I had an example of it right here, because they fill it out right here in the screen where the video is. So it doesn't pop out on a new screen or anything like that. And it's really nice because it remembers that you took that video already. So if you come back and watch it again, it doesn't force you to take it a second time. And it's just really, really nice. I really like it a lot.
And I used to be a trainer, so I can go on this all day with you guys. But between SharePoint, Stream, and Forms, you can really replace a lot of learning management systems. So this is a pretty incredible tool that I would love to show you if you reach out. Microsoft Teams, like I said, I won't jump into it now. Maybe I'll put some things out on our social media so I can show you these new functions, but I just want to mention, if you were using Staff Hub on timesheets and scheduling for staff, that functionality is actually being moved right into Microsoft Teams. The calendar feature is now all built out oh, thank you, Jared. The calendar feature is now all built out where you can actually see your full calendar, not just the list that was there before, and you can actually schedule meetings right in here. When you're chatting with someone, you can make messages, or chatting with a person or as in a group and a team, you can make them either important or urgent messages, that way to make sure they really see it. And you can also put out announcements right here. And announcements would be a little bit different, come across as an announcement to the whole team.
Yeah, so let me show how I did that again, because it's not obvious. It is not obvious. So you have to first come down here to the little A here, which is the format button. And then here it says new conversation. You're going to click that and go and change it to announcement, and then you can type in your announcement.
Yeah, and then at the very top, there's a command box that you can type in things. I'll put that on social media. I'll show you guys some really cool features up there, and also some channel settings that I want to show you guys. For Power BI, I just want to quickly mention that their May update was a really big update for Power BI Server. And basically, they're trying to make the two systems close to identical. So if you're used to the other system, getting into Power BI Server will be a lot easier. And like I said, reach out if you have any questions on those.
And that's significant. Let me just say one more. I know we're very close to out of time. We want to respect everyone's time, but let me just mention one more thing about Power BI Server. So big conversations around licensing. I don't know why they had so many conversations around licensings during the Power BI presentations that were there. Because honestly, if you came to it, you're probably looking for more functionality than you were the licensing aspect of it. But the presenters really talked about it a lot, which led me to kind of dig into it a little bit. And what I want to say is always consider Power BI Server as a valid way to go if you want to be able to, when you're considering licenses. So consider that piece as well, because it's going to have all the functionality that Power BI Online has, and it's going to have all the functionality that reporting services has as well. So if you're in that vein, definitely don't rule it out. Look at Power BI Server as an on-prem option versus a cloud option. All right, so Ignite will be in November. If you don't have tickets now, I won't see you there because it is sold all the way out.
See a couple people from here out there. They said they were attending.
Awesome. So check me out when you're there. I'll be there wandering around, one of the million people that'll be in the audience somewhere. Just come and find me. And then follow us on Twitter as well, and we'll be putting out information. There's about 1,100 plus sessions that are out there now. 286 of those have been deemed as SharePoint Teams or Flow, but probably more than that by the time we get there. And that's going to be really cool. Also, SharePoint Saturdays in Kansas City. Look us up there, October 19th. I'll be presenting. Actually, I think I have 2 sessions to do at that SharePoint Saturdays. They're really cool sessions. Drop by, support the Kansas City SharePoint Saturday. Good stuff going on there.
And I'll be there running around between classes. So if you want to meet up, let me know. We'll be there.
Yep.
Like I said, we don't have time for questions today, but please email me at btibbin@spindustry.com. Help you with anything. Here's my contact information. Here's our next webinar information that'll be out soon for you to register. And also, I just want to mention, follow us on social media. I'm starting a new program where I'm putting out updates and little training things on there, so check us out. Thank you for joining today. As a reminder, you'll be receiving the email with the recording and the slide deck here soon. And I hope to see you at our next webinar in November.
Thanks, everyone.